What do you mean you told her she was too old to understand the product? Wesley Vaughn froze, headset halfway to his ear. He was sitting in a worn-out swivel chair inside the 11th call center of his 17-location tech support company, disguised as Greg, a new hire shadowing the reps for training week. The center was one of the busiest, handling customer complaints, warranty issues, and technical support for the company's home security products. Wesley had bought the company 8 years ago when it was on the brink of bankruptcy. Since then, he'd built it up from 5 locations to 17. But lately, something had been gnawing at him. Customer satisfaction had dropped, complaints were piling up, and refund requests were higher than ever. He didn't want another filtered report from corporate. He needed the truth. So he put on a pair of thick glasses, dyed his hair black, grew a short beard, and registered himself as a trainee set to shadow one of the call reps under a fake name. The reason no one recognized him? Simple. He'd never met most of the call center staff. The company had grown so fast, and this particular center had been inherited through a merger with a smaller firm. Not a single person here had seen him in person. To them, he was just another guy trying to learn the ropes. The voice that made him pause came from the cubicle to his left. The rep's name tag read Matt in bold black letters. Matt looked about 30, wore a headset like it was fused to his head, and had a habit of reclining so far back in his chair, it squeaked every few minutes. She said she didn't understand how to install the camera, Matt went on, laughing. So I told her, ma'am, maybe it's just not something for your generation. Wesley's stomach turned. He looked to his right. The rep he was shadowing, a quiet woman named Lacey Newton, didn't laugh. Her lips tightened and she tapped something quickly into her screen. Is that normal? Wesley whispered. Lacey didn't look away from her monitor. No, but nothing here is. Wesley didn't respond. Instead, he leaned back slightly, listening. Matt chuckled again. Yeah, she got all offended. Whatever. I marked it resolved and moved on. Resolved, Wesley had heard enough for now. He sat still, letting the day unfold. Over the next hour, he heard a lot more than he bargained for. One rep, Derek, told a customer who'd had her door alarm malfunction during a break-in that she should have updated her firmware like the app told her. No apology, no empathy, just blame. Another rep, Monica, put a man on hold for 15 minutes, then came back and said, "Sorry, I had to take my lunch." What was your problem again? Wesley's chest tightened. These weren't isolated incidents, it was a culture. And then there was Lacey. She handled every call with patience, even when the tech wasn't working or when customers were downright rude. A man yelling about billing errors. She calmed him down, walked him through everything, and even stayed after her shift ended to follow up with the billing department. Why do you even try so hard? Wesley asked her quietly while she typed up notes. She shrugged without looking at him. Because someone has to. When their manager, Brent, walked by, she straightened up. Wesley noticed the change instantly. Her jaw stiffened, her back went rigid. Brent was tall, always holding a coffee cup he barely sipped from, and he spoke like he was late for something more important. Lacey, he said, pausing at her desk, you're spending too much time on each call. We don't need therapists, we need efficiency. Lacey nodded once, eyes down. Wesley kept his mouth shut, but his hands were clenched under the desk. Later that day, after Brent left for a district meeting, Lacey offered to show Wesley around the break room. It was a cramped space with a vending machine, peeling linoleum, and 2 busted microwaves. You've been here long, he asked. 4 years, she said, grabbing a water bottle. I've applied for promotions 3 times. Brent says I don't have the right energy. He raised an eyebrow. What does that even mean? She gave a short laugh. No idea, but Matt got promoted after 6 months. He spends half his day on fantasy football. That night, Wesley sat in his rental car, staring at the glowing sign of the call center through the windshield. His mind raced. This was his company. And this was what it had become. He thought of the elderly woman Matt mocked. The woman who'd paid good money for a product she didn't understand, only to be dismissed. And Lacey, quiet, hardworking, ignored. He felt like a stranger in his own business. The next morning, things got worse. He arrived early, sitting in the back row of the training room as reps filtered in. Brent walked in last, sipping his ever-present coffee. He didn't bother greeting anyone. All right, Brent said, setting his cup down. Reminder, we're pushing the new warranty upsell hard this week. If they're calling in for anything, you steer them into it. I don't care what their issue is, pitch it. Got it? Matt raised his hand lazily. Even if it's like a billing thing, Brent nodded. Especially then, confused people are easier to sell. Wesley's jaw nearly dropped, and then Brent said something that made Wesley's blood go cold. And for the love of God, stop explaining things to the old ones. Just read the upsell script. They don't get it anyway, it's not our job to babysit. No one argued. A few even chuckled. Lacey didn't laugh. Wesley stood up. Brent looked over. Greg, you got a question? Wesley stared at him. Yeah, I've got a question, but not yet. After the meeting, he made a quiet call to his executive assistant. I need full call recordings for this center, every rep, last 2 weeks, and get corporate HR ready. He hung up, heart pounding. He'd come here hoping to understand the complaints. Now he was terrified by what he'd found, and this was only the beginning. Wesley didn't sleep that night. He lay in the stiff hotel bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the air conditioner, replaying everything he'd witnessed. He kept thinking of the man who lost sleep to protect his home, only to be told it was his fault for not updating firmware. And of Lacey, not because of any grand gesture, but because she worked like someone who still believed the company cared. By morning, he'd made a decision. He wasn't going to wait for reports or filter things through corporate. He had 2 more days left before the end of his training week, and he'd use every hour to see just how deep the rot went. The recordings from corporate would take time to review. Until then, he needed to keep his eyes open and his mouth shut. He arrived early again and quietly took his seat in the far cubicle next to Lacey's. She barely glanced at him, already deep in a case file. The office was quiet this early, just the sound of typing and the occasional ring of someone picking up a call. Wesley leaned slightly toward her. That woman yesterday, the one with the billing error, did you get it sorted? Lacey didn't stop typing. I stayed late. Got her full refund and made sure she was taken off the auto-renew list. No one else would have done that, he said. She paused, then turned slightly. Yeah, that's the problem. As the rest of the reps trickled in, Wesley noticed something he'd missed before. Monica arrived 15 minutes late, tossing her purse under her desk and immediately logging into her game tab before so much as opening the ticket queue. Derek was already sipping an energy drink, feet up, headset around his neck, not even pretending to be ready. No one said a word about it. Not even the floor supervisor, a guy named Ray who arrived shortly after with a Bluetooth earpiece and an oversized tablet. He didn't greet the team, just walked a slow loop, checked a few screens, then disappeared into his office. Wesley watched him go. Ray doesn't manage, he asked. Lacey glanced toward the closed office door. No one really does. He forwards emails and sends out reminders about average handle time. That's about it. Who does the coaching, the oversight? There isn't any. Unless you mean Brent coming down to yell about sales quotas. By mid-morning, the call queue was overloaded. Wesley saw the numbers spiking on the shared dashboard. 32 calls waiting. 32 households on hold, trying to get help with security systems. No urgency in the room. He watched Matt casually end a call with a quick press, then pull out his phone and scroll through what looked like real estate listings. Wesley whispered, "Did he just?" Lacey didn't look over. "He does that when the call's gonna take too long. Says he doesn't get paid enough to deal with complex customers." Wesley stared at the screen in front of him. The customer had been on the line for almost 19 minutes. He stood up. "I need a coffee," he muttered, heading toward the break room. It wasn't about coffee. He needed space to think. He needed to breathe. Inside the cramped break room, he found an older woman in a company polo shirt wiping down the counter. She looked up as he entered. "You're one of the new ones, right?" she asked. He nodded. "Greg, I'm Sheila, facilities. I clean up after everyone else." She smiled, tired but warm. He stepped closer. "Can I ask you something?" She shrugged. "Sure. How long have you worked here?" 7 years, since before the merger." He hesitated. "Do you like it?" She looked around the room like he'd just asked if she liked the smell of bleach. "It used to be good, before they brought in outside management. Back then, the supervisors knew our names. People cared about the customers. Now it's just numbers. Handle time, sales pitch rate, first call resolution. If you can't hit the metrics, you're disposable, he nodded slowly. Do they ever ask you how things are going? She let out a quiet laugh. Me, no, I'm invisible. But I see everything. She paused, then added, you want to know who still gives a damn, talk to the night shift. They don't get the same visibility, but some of them are still out here doing real work. That night, Wesley returned just before midnight, wearing a different jacket and a ball cap pulled low. The night shift was small, maybe a dozen reps, but the energy was completely different. There was no idle chatter, no phones out. Every rep had a headset on, focused, calm. The room felt competent. He sat beside a rep who introduced herself as Janelle. She looked exhausted, but she was pleasant and efficient. As he watched her work, he noticed something else. She stayed on every call until the customer was satisfied. No rushing, no scripts, just actual help. You guys seem more organized than day shift, he said quietly. Janelle didn't look away from her screen. We have to be. No supervisors breathing down our necks, just us and the customers. We take pride in that. He studied her face. She wasn't performing, she meant it. Do you ever get recognition for that? She snorted softly. We had the best customer feedback scores last quarter. Brent said it was a fluke. Has anyone from upper management come down to thank you? She turned to him for the first time. No one from corporates ever set foot in this room. Wesley sat in silence, watching her finish the call, speaking gently to a woman trying to reset her security panel after a power outage. She stayed on the line until the woman confirmed it was working. Thank you so much, the woman said over the headset. You've been the only one who actually helped. Janelle smiled faintly. That's what I'm here for. When the call ended, she leaned back for the first time in 20 minutes. I do this because my mom lives alone, she said. She has one of our systems. If she ever needed help, I'd want someone like me on the other end. Wesley felt a tightness in his chest. He didn't know what to say. The next day, he returned to the day shift with a different kind of anger. Not the hot, impulsive kind, the cold, clear kind that comes from knowing exactly what's broken. Ray was already in his office, door closed. Monica was again late. Brent hadn't arrived yet. Matt was bragging to Derek about a customer he tricked into buying an extended warranty by pretending it was mandatory for activation. Wesley waited until Brent walked in, then stood and followed him toward the hallway. Hey, he called out. Brent turned. Greg, right? What is it? I've got a question about upselling. Brent gave a half nod. Sure, what about it? Are there any guidelines on when it's appropriate? Brent chuckled. If their credit card works, it's appropriate. Wesley stared at him. What if the customer is calling in for a system error? Or a technical issue? Even better. You pitch it as part of the fix. It's not unethical, it's just smart business. Wesley's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. So misleading customers is just part of the process. Brent raised an eyebrow. You got a problem with how we do things here? Wesley held his gaze. Yeah, I do, Brent laughed, dismissive. You'll learn or you won't last. Wesley turned and walked away. He knew what he had to do. He waited until the team was gathered for the midday meeting. Brent stood at the front, coffee cup in hand, droning on about conversion rates. Wesley stepped forward. Sorry to interrupt, he said. Brent frowned. Greg, this isn't, I think it is, Wesley said, pulling the glasses from his face and setting them on the desk beside him. The room went still. Matt blinked. Derek leaned forward. Lacey's eyes widened. My name isn't Greg, Wesley said. My name is Wesley Vaughn. I own this company. A silence fell so deep you could hear the fans humming in the ceiling. Brent's mouth opened slightly. What, you heard me, Wesley said. I've been here all week, watching how this center runs, listening to calls, watching how you treat customers, how you treat each other, and I'm done watching. No one moved. He turned to the team. This isn't what I built. This isn't what this company stands for. And starting today, everything changes. He looked at Brent. Step into your office. Brent didn't move. I wasn't asking, Wesley said. Brent set his cup down slowly and walked stiffly toward the hallway, Wesley close behind. Change was coming, but first, accountability. Brent shut the door to his office and stood stiffly behind his desk, arms crossed, eyes darting toward the hallway glass. Wesley didn't sit. He closed the door behind him and stood just across from the desk, his voice low but steady. You've been here how long? 2 years, Brent replied. Transferred after the merger. Then you should know better than to run a floor like that. Brent gave a short exhale. With respect, this center's been outperforming the others in upsells for 3 quarters. I've hit every target corporate's given me. And what about complaint volume? Refund requests, customer retention, Brent hesitated. I don't get those numbers. You don't ask for them, I focus on what I'm measured on. Wesley nodded once. That's the problem. Brent shifted his weight, clearly working out whether to defend himself or stay silent. I've got recordings, Wesley continued. Dozens. Customer calls from this center are getting flagged for misconduct, rudeness, misinformation, and outright manipulation, and you're promoting the people behind it. Brent's voice lowered. If you're referring to Matt, he's a top performer. Higher conversion rates than anyone on the floor. At what cost? Brent didn't answer. Wesley stepped forward. You made it clear this morning that confused customers are easier to sell to. That's not strategy, it's exploitation, and it ends today. Brent straightened. If you want to make changes, I'll enforce them, but I've done what I was told to maximize revenue and keep the floor moving. You were told to manage with integrity. That didn't happen. Brent opened his mouth, but Wesley raised a hand. There's no point arguing. You're being placed on administrative leave effective immediately. You'll be escorted out in 10 minutes. Corporate HR will follow up with next steps. Brent's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. Wesley didn't flinch. I already did. I let people like you represent my company. He turned and opened the door. Outside, the noise from the floor had dulled. Conversations were hushed. A few heads turned as Brent emerged, pale and silent, and walked briskly toward the exit without a word. Wesley stepped into the center of the room. He didn't raise his voice. I know most of you don't know me, he said, but I've spent the last week working beside you, listening, watching. And I need to be clear, what I saw in this building doesn't reflect who we are as a company. No one interrupted. There are people in this room who have been taking shortcuts, manipulating customers, and treating their jobs like a game. That changes now. If you're one of them, consider this your warning. If you can't operate with honesty and respect, you won't work here. Several reps looked away. A few closed browser tabs quietly. He turned toward the back. And for those of you who have been doing the right thing without recognition, without support, I owe you more than thanks. I owe you action. Lacey stood near her desk, arms folded. She didn't smile. Wesley continued. There will be no more promotions based on sales alone. No more pressure to push products to people who don't need them. Starting today, we're restructuring this center. Real training, better oversight, and direct accountability to corporate. A man near the back raised a hand halfway. Wesley nodded toward him. Are we still supposed to pitch the warranty upsells? You're supposed to solve the customer's problem. If a warranty helps them long-term, offer it. If not, don't mention it. You're here to help, not hustle. The room went still again. Wesley stepped back. That's all for now. Ray will be stepping out of his role. We'll be appointing interim management from another location until we finish our review. He didn't wait for applause. There wasn't any. As he left the floor, he passed Lacey, who didn't move. I need to talk to you, he said quietly. She followed him down the hall to the small conference room near the back. He gestured for her to sit, then closed the door. I'm not here to apologize, he said as he sat across from her. That wouldn't mean much right now. She kept her gaze steady. So what are you here to say? I need your help. She tilted her head slightly. With what? This floor needs rebuilding, from the ground up. I need someone who understands the job, the people, and the customers. Someone who's already doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. She didn't respond right away. I'm not a manager, she said finally. I've never even led a team. Exactly. You've never had the power to set direction, and you still manage to do more for customers than anyone else here. She looked down at the table. I applied 3 times. Brent said I wasn't assertive enough. Wesley leaned forward. You're not here because of him. You're here because you give a damn. That's more than I can say for the last 3 people who sat in that office. She met his eyes again. You expect me to fix all of it. I expect you to help me start. She breathed in slowly. Then I'll need support, real training, not checklists. I'll need time to build trust, and I'll need 2 more reps on night shift. We're stretched thin. You'll get all of that, and a direct report to me for the next 60 days. Her expression didn't change, but her shoulders shifted slightly, like a weight had shifted. "And Matt, suspended pending full review of his calls. If the recordings confirm what I heard, he's gone." She nodded once. "I'll take the role, but only if I can promote from within." "You'll have that authority," he stood. She followed. "I'm not promising miracles," she said before they opened the door. "I'm not asking for any," Wesley said. "I'm asking for progress." That afternoon, he stayed in the building but didn't hover. He watched from the corner as Lacey began quietly checking in with reps, asking questions, reviewing cases. She wasn't loud. She didn't issue orders, but something shifted. People sat straighter. The noise level dropped. Calls were taken more seriously. That evening, Wesley walked the perimeter of the building, phone pressed to his ear. "Start auditing all 17 centers," he told his assistant. "Same process. Pull call logs, flag anything that's off script or unethical, and start recruitment for a regional ethics lead." He paused. "Also reach out to Janelle from night shift, offer her a lead position, part-time if she wants. She's earned it." He ended the call and looked back at the building. It was still messy, still broken in places, but it was changing. And this time, he wasn't going to disappear back into reports and quarterly briefings. He was going to stay close. Listen harder. Show up when it mattered, because the people doing the right thing had waited long enough. By the following Monday, the atmosphere in the call center had changed, but not in the triumphant, movie-ending kind of way. It was quieter, heavier. Like the building itself was waiting to see if the promises meant anything. Wesley returned mid-morning, this time without the disguise. No glasses. No dyed hair. Just himself, walking through the double doors in a plain gray button-down and slacks, nodding to the front desk rep who stiffened as she recognized him. He didn't pause. He didn't need a tour. He already knew every hallway, every broken microwave, every voice on the floor. The main room was half full. The overnight team had just clocked out, and the morning shift was still settling in. Lacey stood near the front with a clipboard, speaking to a rep Wesley hadn't seen before, a young man with a buzz cut and a nervous posture, clearly new. She was showing him how to pull up previous tickets without prompting the customer to repeat themselves. Her tone was calm but focused, and every rep nearby was within earshot. Wesley waited until she was done before approaching. "How's it going?" he asked. Lacey turned, her face unreadable. "Rough, but forward. Anything I need to hear, always," she said. "But let's start with today's problem." She stepped aside, motioning toward the floor. "We're understaffed. The people who used to coast are now being held accountable, and it turns out they didn't know how to do much beyond reading from a script. That slowed everything down." Wesley glanced around. Half the desks were empty. How many no-shows? 4. Plus 2 who quit without notice after Friday. That hadn't made it into the morning update. "I can pull someone from the Albuquerque location for a few weeks," he said. "They're over capacity right now," Lacey nodded. "That'll help, but it's more than numbers. We've got to unteach bad habits." "That takes time." He didn't argue. She looked toward the back of the room. "I've got Janelle coming in for a late shift today. She's training the new night lead." Wesley checked his watch. "I'll stay through the afternoon, sit in on a few calls." He didn't wait for a response. He walked to an open desk near the corner, logged into a guest terminal, and pulled up the live dashboard. The hold queue was climbing again. He adjusted his headset, opened the call line, and took a call himself. The customer on the other end was frustrated, but not hostile, a man trying to set up a video doorbell that kept disconnecting from his Wi-Fi. Wesley walked him through a manual reset, then flagged the device for replacement. It took 11 minutes. The man thanked him twice. Wesley ended the call, exhaled, and took another. By the third call, a rep across the aisle, Reggie, according to his nameplate, leaned over and whispered, "You're taking live tickets." Wesley nodded. Reggie blinked. "You don't have to do that, I know." He didn't explain further. Lacey came by an hour later and handed him a printout. "Customer feedback from the weekend," she said. "Sorted by rep." He scanned the first page. Most of the complaints were about delays, but the tone had shifted. Customers were still upset, but not furious. The abusive language had dropped significantly. There were fewer caps-locked tirades, fewer threats to cancel and sue. It wasn't fixed, but it was moving. He flipped to the last page, a post. It was stuck to the bottom corner. Lacey had scribbled one line in pen, "Don't mistake compliance for understanding." He turned the note over. Blank on the back, no further explanation. He pocketed it without a word. At noon, a rep named Sonia approached him near the kitchenette. She looked mid-30s with sharp features and a voice like gravel. "I heard you were taking calls," she said. "I was." She shifted her stance. "You planning to do that regularly, maybe?" "Why?" She hesitated. "Because it's the first time I've seen a corporate suit actually deal with what we deal with. It matters." He nodded slowly. "Noted." She didn't linger. After lunch, Lacey led a short coaching session in the break room. 5 reps sat in folding chairs, notebooks open. Wesley stood near the door, listening. "This isn't about selling less," Lacey said. "It's about selling right. If the product doesn't help the customer, don't push it. If it does, explain it clearly. Don't pressure, don't rush. Just explain." One of the newer reps, a tall guy with a clipped accent, raised a hand. "What if they say no right away? Then move on," Lacey said. "We're not here to argue, we're here to help." After the session, Wesley caught up to her outside the break room. "You've got a good handle on that group. They're listening," she said. "I'm not sure they trust me yet, but they're listening. That's enough to start." Later that afternoon, Wesley asked her to walk the floor with him, not to inspect, just to observe. They moved desk to desk, standing quietly behind reps as they worked. Some were still stiff, watching their monitors like they were being graded. Others were easing into it. A few even cracked jokes with customers, small moments of humanity returning to the job. At one desk, a woman named Arlene was helping a customer set up a panic code. Wesley watched her pause halfway through the instructions and ask if the customer had any accessibility needs. The customer said she had limited vision. Arlene slowed her pace, repeated the directions, and offered to send a printed guide in large font. Wesley looked at Lacey. She was already writing something down. He turned to Arlene after the call ended. "How long have you been doing this?" 2 years, she said. "This location only. Has anyone ever sat in on your calls before?" "No," she said. "Not until now." He nodded, then walked on. By early evening, Janelle arrived, her hair pulled back, sleeves rolled. She dropped her bag behind the front desk and made a beeline for Lacey. They spoke in low tones, heads close. Then Janelle turned and began introducing herself to the night shift as they filtered in. Wesley left them to it. He needed to make one final stop before leaving. He found the building's maintenance office tucked behind the loading dock. The door was cracked open, light buzzing inside. Sheila was there, wiping down a shelf of supplies. He knocked once. She turned. "Didn't expect to see you back here." "I wanted to thank you," he said. "For what you told me last week, you were right." She gave a tired half smile. "Wasn't trying to be right, just honest." He stepped inside. "I want to make sure you're still seeing what you saw before, but if something's wrong, I want to hear about it." She studied him for a moment. "You're serious?" "I am." "Then I'll tell you this," she said. "You're cleaning up a mess that's been building for years. Don't expect people to cheer just because you showed up with a mop." "I don't," she nodded slowly. "Good, then maybe you'll last." That night, Wesley stood in the parking lot alone, watching the center's lights flicker off one by one. The building wasn't cured, but it was under new care. He looked down at the note in his pocket one more time. "Don't mistake compliance for understanding." He folded it again, tucked it into his wallet, and turned toward his car. Leadership wasn't about watching from the top floor. It was about standing where the problems lived, listening without flinching, and staying long enough to see the change through. Tomorrow, he'd be back. Not to oversee, to stay involved.